the Star of Silence, a Mars tale. Most fairy tales begin with once upon a time, but Astra's tale began with silence. Not a vow, not a spell, just the closing of her lips and the tightening of her throat as she chose at the age of 10 to say nothing at all. For 9 years, she never spoke a single word, 8 of which she spent in the colony of the Alpha Commander. An invisible girl scrubbing floors and folding linens by day, a silent shadow slipping through pressurized corridors by night. To the colonists, she was just another servant. To the nobles, forgettable. And to the commander, she was no one. Astra had never meant to fall for him, not when she was nothing more than the mute girl who poured his synthesized tea. But love doesn't ask for permission, and her heart, stubborn thing that it was, decided long ago that it belonged to a commander who didn't even know her name. He never looked her way, and that was how it had to be. Because Astra wasn't just a servant, she was a princess hidden in plain sight, and her silence wasn't a choice. It was a sacrifice. To speak would doom her brothers to remain forever trapped in Martian wolf form. To save them, she had to weave 6 suits in secret, in silence, and in suffering. So perhaps this is not a fairy tale at all, but something older, wilder, more primal. A story of wolves and witches, of curses and colonies, of a girl who gave up her voice not for a prince, but for the lives of the brothers she loved. Or perhaps it is simply the tale of a girl who has loved too deeply for too long, with no hope of her feelings ever being returned. For how could an Alpha Commander ever notice a servant who cannot speak, cannot call his name, cannot cry out the truth she has held inside for 8 long years? How could he ever see what's been right before him all along? ## Chapter 1. Phobos and Deimos light spilled like silver water across the colonial biodomes. In their ethereal glow, the Ares thorn flowers shimmered, their delicate crimson blooms belying their deadly nature. Astra moved silently between the carefully tended hydroponic beds, selecting only the most mature stems, her touch so gentle that by morning no one would notice the harvest. 8 years of midnight gatherings had taught her patience. Distant music from the celebration hall floated through the recycled air, a perfect cover for her clandestine work. The commander had returned from his northern outpost today, and the colony celebrated with characteristic excess. Even the guards, who usually patrolled this section, lingered by viewports, eager for glimpses of the spectacle inside, which meant the biodomes were mercifully deserted. Astra's fingers burned as Ares' thorn sap touched her skin, its toxicity causing a familiar tingling. For shifters, the plant was dangerous to touch, deadly if ingested. She endured the discomfort without complaint, filling her leather pouch with the precious blooms. This is for Orion, she thought, selecting a particularly fine specimen, her eldest brother, whose silver-streaked wolf still carried the regal bearing of the crown prince he once was. And this for Zephyr, her youngest brother, whose playful spirit somehow survived despite 9 years trapped in a wolf's body. When the burning became too much, she paused and closed her eyes, conjuring memories of her brothers as they once were. Their embraces had sustained her through pain, silence, and years of hiding. 5 suits completed, the 6th nearly done, lacking only a right sleeve. Just 6 more months of silence and they would be free. 6 more months of secret harvesting, of weaving by LED light, of holding her tongue. A pressure sensor beeped nearby. Astra froze, heart leaping to her throat. She melted into the shadow of a large atmospheric processor. Breath shallow and controlled. Footsteps approached, unhurried, confident. Not the brisk pace of a patrolling guard, but the stride of someone who moved freely through every inch of the colony. The footsteps of a commander. Astra should flee. Any servant caught in the royal biodomes after dark faced severe punishment. But as the figure rounded the processor, moonlight lit his face and her breath caught. The Alpha Commander was here. In the silvery light, his features looked otherworldly. Strong jaw, high cheekbones, and eyes that gleamed with intelligence and restrained wildness. He walked alone, his tall frame moving with predatory grace, his wolf restless, as it always was when he came here searching for peace. This wasn't the first time she had seen him here. In 8 years of silent watching, she had learned the subtle shifts in his expression. The furrow between his brows when outpost reports troubled him, the faint softening around his eyes when he spoke with children. The biodome was her most dangerous harvesting ground. Yet she returned night after night for one reason: a chance to glimpse him. How many nights had she imagined stepping from the shadows? How many times had she composed conversations in her mind, wondering what she might say if her voice were hers to give? Her fingers itched to smooth the tension from his shoulders. Her heart ached to know what troubled him tonight, to offer comfort. She had seen his kindness in secret moments. The credit chips slipped to aging servants when no one was looking. The hours he spent training young guards instead of delegating. So she had fallen in love, not with a rank, but with the man who bore it with reluctant grace. Sometimes the yearning became a physical pain, a hollow ache beneath her ribs that never truly faded. To be so close yet forever separated by silence and station. To see his smile offered to others, never to her. Her wolf stirred inside her, pressing up against her thoughts with a familiar pull. Mate, it whispered as it had for 8 years.
Mine.
Astra silenced it as always, a foolish fancy. Even if the legends of fated mates were true, even if this pull was more than simple attraction, she could never claim him. Not while her brothers remained cursed, not while she was bound to silence. Your Excellency. A new voice shattered the moment. A courtier entered the biodome, elaborately dressed in celebration finery. Lord Vex. The commander acknowledged him without turning. I requested privacy. I understand that, Your Excellency, but the governor. I'm certain the governor can entertain herself for a few moments. The commander interrupted, irritation creeping into his tone. As she is most eager to discuss the proposed alliance, Vex pressed. The council believes a union between our colonies would bring unprecedented prosperity. Astra's heart stuttered. A union? The commander's voice flattened. You speak of marriage as though it were merely a trade agreement. Lord Vex shifted uneasily. Duty often requires personal sacrifice, sir. The commander sighed, dragging a hand through his dark hair. Yes, I'm well acquainted with duty, old friend. Astra's fingers curled into the bark of the synthetic tree. Marriage. Her commander was being pushed toward marriage. The thought sent a wave of pain through her chest, a crushing pressure that made it hard to breathe. Someone else would stand at his side. Someone else would know his thoughts, his touch, his smile. Someone else would be everything Astra could never be. And she had no choice but to accept it. She had always known it would happen someday. What was she but a silent servant? A shadow. The governor is beautiful, Lord Vex offered, and her colony's resources would complement ours perfectly. The titanium mines alone. I am aware of her assets, the commander cut in, as I am aware of the rumors surrounding her previous marriages. Astra leaned forward, straining to hear. Rumors only, sir, Vex said smoothly. Her first husband died in the rebellion 9 years ago. The others, well, powerful men often have enemies. 3 husbands, all dead within a year of marriage, the commander mused. Perhaps I should be flattered. She considers me worthy to be the 4th. 3 husbands. A chill crept down Astra's spine. Could this governor? No, it couldn't be. Why would she come here? She didn't need to. The council merely asks that you consider the alliance, Vex said. Speak with her. Dance with her. Perhaps you'll find her agreeable. The commander stared up at Phobos and Deimos for a long moment, silent. My wolf is restless tonight, he said, as it often is in these biodomes, like it's searching for something I cannot name. Astra's heart pounded. Her own wolf whined in response, straining toward him despite her desperate efforts to contain it. Perhaps what it seeks awaits you in the celebration hall, Vex suggested. The commander's laugh held no humor. Perhaps. He straightened, posture shifting back into that of a leader. Very well. Let us return to the celebration. As they turned to go, a breeze from the ventilation system stirred the biodome. The commander paused, nostrils flaring. Do you smell that? He asked, turning back toward the shadows where Astra hid. The biodomes are full of strange plants, sir, Vex replied. The master botanist cultivates many varieties for medicinal use. For one terrifying moment, The commander's gaze swept over Astra's hiding place. She pressed further into the shadows, barely breathing. His eyes, amber even in the moonlight, seemed to pierce the dark. Then the moment passed. He shook his head and followed Vex back toward the colony. Astra waited until their footsteps faded before allowing herself to breathe. She should return to the servants' quarters, continue weaving, forget what she had heard. But something pulled her toward the colony. A desperate need to see this governor, the woman who might claim what Astra's heart said was hers. Just one glimpse, just to know who she was. Moving silently, Astra crept to the servants' entrance near the great hall. Music and laughter spilled through the doors as servers bustled in and out with trays of wine and food. She slipped inside, hugging the walls where the LED light didn't reach. The celebration hall blazed with 1,000 lights, their glow reflecting off jewels and silks as nobles danced and laughed. At the far end, on a dais stood the commander, composed, regal, and beside him, Astra's blood turned to ice. Tall and regal, her silver-white hair arranged in a crown of braids, the woman moved with utter confidence. Her ageless face bore the same cold beauty Astra remembered. The beauty that had enchanted her father, destroyed him. Lady Morga, governor of Argentum, the witch who had cursed her brothers, the woman who had murdered her father and stolen their colony. And now she stood beside the commander, her crimson-tipped fingers resting on his arm. Her painted lips curved in a smile that promised ruin. Chapter 2. Astra pressed herself into an alcove behind a heavy thermal curtain. From this hidden vantage point, she could observe the grand celebration. How Lady Morga commanded the center of the celebration hall, as if she had been born to rule Ferrum Hold rather than merely visiting it. The scene was hauntingly familiar. 9 years ago, Astra had watched from behind similar curtains as Morga charmed her way into her father's colony and his heart. Commander Caius of Argentum had been a strong, vibrant leader before Morga's arrival. Astra had been only 6 then, but she remembered clearly how her father would scoop her into his arms, his laughter booming through the colony corridors. Then came Morga with her bewitching smile and her bioengineered potions. Within weeks of their marriage, her father changed. His vibrant presence dimmed. His eyes grew distant and vacant. He no longer recognized Astra or her brothers, becoming a hollow puppet who echoed only Morga's words and desires. The colonists whispered that grief for his late wife had finally caught up with him. But Astra's eldest brother, Orion, suspected darker forces at work. "She's draining him," Orion had whispered one night after they'd been turned away from their father's chambers for the 5th time. Feeding on his life force to strengthen her abilities, they had planned to confront Morga, to demand answers, but they never got the chance. One night, Zephyr, her youngest brother, had burst into her chamber, panic in his eyes. "We have to leave now," he'd hissed, pulling her from bed. "Father is dead. Morga claims we poisoned him. The security forces are coming for us." They fled into the night, seeking refuge in the abandoned mining tunnels bordering their colony. For 3 years, they lived as fugitives, moving constantly through the red wastes to stay ahead of Morga's hunters. Astra's childhood vanished in those tunnels, replaced by harsh lessons in survival. Then came the night Morga's bio-enhanced hunters finally caught up with them. Astra closed her eyes against the memory. The cavern lit by plasma fire, her brothers shifting to wolf form to protect her. Morga's cruel laughter as she cast her curse. "Let your beast forms become your prison," she had proclaimed, silver light enveloping the 6 princes. "Let your human minds watch helplessly from within." Only Astra had escaped the curse, hidden beneath fallen rocks by Zephyr's quick thinking before he transformed. She had lain motionless, scarcely breathing, as Morga declared the princess surely dead in the wilderness, her brothers now mindless beasts to be hunted for sport. That very night, her grandmother's spirit had come to her in a dream, revealing the cure. *6 suits woven from silver Ares thorn. Complete silence until all are finished. This alone will break the curse on your brothers. Astra wandered for months, searching for enough Ares thorn to begin her task, until she learned of Commander Damon's famous biodomes. Taking a position in his kitchens had been her salvation, abundant Ares thorn, and the safety of anonymity. Now, watching Morga circle Damon like a predator sizing up prey, Astra recognized the pattern unfolding again. Was Argentum no longer enough? Did Morga now desire Ferrum Hold, too? Seeking to add Damon's colony to her collection through marriage before disposing of him like she had Astra's father? The thought of Damon's strength fading, his vibrant spirit dimming to nothing, made Astra physically ill. Her fingers curled into fists, nails biting into her palms. She should warn him. She had to. But how? She had never learned to read or write. Her education cut short when she fled the colony at 6. Even if she broke her vow of silence, risking her brother's permanent curse, would a commander believe accusations from a mute servant girl? And Morga would recognize her instantly, would silence her permanently before she could reveal the truth. Astra's mind raced with impossible choices as she watched Morga laugh at something Damon said, her hand lingering too long on his arm. The witch's ruby ring, the same one she had worn when casting the curse, glinted in the LED light, a reminder of her power. As the night wore on, Astra noticed Damon growing increasingly weary of the diplomatic pleasantries. He maintained his commanding composure, but she recognized the subtle signs of fatigue, the slight stiffness in his shoulders, the smile that no longer reached his eyes. Finally, after exchanging words with Lord Vex, he made his excuses to the court. "I must retire earlier than planned," she heard him say. "Tomorrow's negotiations require a clear mind." Morga's painted lips formed a disappointed pout. "The night is still young, Your Excellency." "For some, perhaps," Damon replied smoothly. "I look forward to continuing our discussions tomorrow." He bowed formally over Morga's hand, not quite kissing it, Astra noted with a flicker of satisfaction, before departing the celebration hall. Several courtiers followed. Morga remained, her calculating gaze tracking him until he vanished from view. The moment he was gone, Astra saw a shift in Morga's demeanor. The witch's charming smile dimmed, replaced by cold determination. She scanned the room until her eyes landed on a servant girl carrying a tray of wine goblets. Lyra, a quiet girl who worked the upper floors, including the royal chambers. Astra watched as Morga beckoned her with an imperious gesture. Lyra approached, head bowed. They spoke briefly, Morga's lips barely moving. Then, with practiced sleight of hand, the witch pressed something into Lyra's palm. A vial and several credit chips, both disappearing quickly into the girl's pocket. Movement at the edge of the celebration hall caught Astra's eye. Lyra slipped away from the celebration. Nothing unusual, except for the furtive glance she cast toward Morga before vanishing through a side door. More concerning still was the small vial clutched in her hand, a vial that hadn't been there moments ago. Instinct prickled along Astra's spine. With a final glance at Morga, now surrounded by fawning courtiers, Astra slipped from her hiding place to follow Lyra. The servant corridors were mostly empty, most staff busy with the celebration. Astra kept to the shadows, maintaining distance as she tracked Lyra through the winding halls. To her surprise, Lyra didn't head toward the kitchens or servants' quarters, but up the main lift toward the command wing, an area forbidden to most servants. Astra hesitated. Following meant leaving the relative safety of the lower halls. If she was caught, there would be questions, punishments. But something was wrong. She felt it. Clinging to the wall, she took the emergency stairs, pausing at each landing to make sure Lyra hadn't noticed her. At the top, she glimpsed the girl turning down the corridor toward the commander's private chambers. Astra's heart pounded. Lyra was going to Damon's rooms immediately after speaking to Morga. The pattern was too familiar, too dangerous to ignore. She slipped into a nearby storage alcove as Lyra approached the guards outside the commander's study. "Evening beverage for His Excellency," she heard her say. To Astra's horror, the guards nodded and let her through. Astra moved quickly. At the refreshment station nearby, she grabbed a chrome tray of sliced fruits, something a kitchen servant might plausibly deliver, and hurried forward. "Another refreshment for His Excellency?" one guard asked, raising an eyebrow. Astra nodded, gesturing subtly toward Lyra. The guard shrugged. Very well. He's asked not to be disturbed. Don't linger. The door opened. Astra followed close behind. The commander's private study was spacious yet intimate. Holographic fire casting warm shadows across dark paneled walls. Star charts and books lined the shelves. A heavy desk stood near the viewports overlooking the biodomes. And there, seated before the hollow fire, was Damon. He'd changed from formal attire, now in a loose dark shirt and fitted pants. His collar was open, his hair tousled. The artificial firelight gilded his skin, outlining the strong lines of his face, his chest. He looked younger, human. Astra's throat went dry. In 8 years of secret longing, she'd never seen him like this. Her wolf stirred. Warmth flooded her veins. Mate, it whispered. Ours. Your evening beverage, Your Excellency, Lyra said, curtsying. Just set it there, Damon said distractedly, not looking up. Thank you. As she placed the glass, Astra saw Lyra tip the vial's contents into the drink with a flick of her wrist. The liquid shimmered briefly, then settled, its danger cloaked in glamour. Will there be anything else, Your Excellency? Lyra asked. No, that will be all. As Lyra turned to leave, she noticed Astra. Her eyes narrowed. Astra stepped forward quickly, setting her fruit platter beside the beverage. Damon barely glanced at her. Then his hand reached for the glass. Without thinking, Astra moved. Her sleeve brushed the glass. It tipped and spilled, red liquid blooming like blood across the table and floor. Damon bolted upright. Astra froze. And then he looked at her. Really looked. Time seemed to slow. The crackling hollow fire, Lyra's gasp, the spreading liquid, all faded to insignificance as their eyes met and held. A flicker of bewilderment crossed his face, followed by something deeper, more primal. His pupils dilated, the amber of his irises darkening to molten gold. Astra couldn't breathe, couldn't move. 8 years of yearning crystallized into this single impossible moment. I'll fetch cleaning materials immediately, Your Excellency, Lyra stammered from somewhere far away, her voice thin and unimportant in the charged silence. The commander gave no sign he'd heard. Instead, he took a step toward Astra, then another, drawn by something beyond conscious thought. The firelight cast half his face in shadow, but his eyes, those eyes that had haunted her dreams, remained fixed on hers with an intensity that made her heart stutter. Who are you? He breathed, the question filled with wonder. Astra's lips parted of their own accord, 8 years of stored words rushing to the surface. Yours? Her heart cried out. I'm yours, Kropka. For one dangerous moment, she nearly broke her vow, nearly sacrificed her brothers for the chance to answer him. Horror washed over her as she realized how close she'd come to speaking. 5 suits completed, but the vow still stood. 6 more months of silence required. With a strangled gasp, Astra whirled and fled the chamber, her heart pounding wildly in her chest. ## Chapter 3. Astra hadn't slept. Every time she did, she saw those amber eyes turning gold, heard his voice again. Dawn found her curled by the viewport, the nearly finished 6th suit clutched in trembling hands. The Ares thorn fibers seared her skin, but the pain was nothing compared to the storm inside her. In fitful dreams, Morga had laughed as she dragged Astra before the colony. The lost princess, she declared, poison on her lips, treachery in her heart. Her brothers had watched from beyond the airlock, their wolf eyes filled with accusation. Asterisk, you almost spoke. You nearly doomed us for him. Asterisk. Astra shoved the memories away. She tucked the suit beneath her thin mattress and forced herself to prepare for the day. She was being foolish. He wouldn't remember her. She was no one, just a servant who had spilled a beverage and fled. What mattered now was keeping Morga away from Damon. The potion in the drink made her intent clear. But how could a mute servant girl protect a commander? These thoughts swirled as Astra slipped into her place in the bustling kitchen. She kept her head down, chopping vegetables with practiced speed. No one mentioned last night's incident, which meant Lyra had kept silent. A relief. More ginger in the porridge, the head cook barked, passing between tables. His Excellency requested it yesterday. Astra allowed herself a quiet smile. Damon always asked for more ginger when the weather systems cooled. One of many tiny details she had quietly collected over the years. The familiar kitchen chaos enveloped her. Steam, clattering pots, shouted orders. It was comforting here. She was invisible, safe, until everything stopped. The silence hit like a dropped plate. Astra froze mid-chop, her knife suspended in air. "Your Excellency," the head cook stammered, wiping his hands as he bowed. Astra's heart lurched. Slowly, she turned, already knowing who stood in the doorway. Commander Damon Steele. No formal uniform, no ceremonial armor, just a dark tunic and quiet authority. Vex and the steward flanked him, both looking equally stunned by the commander's presence. "Please continue your work," Damon said, his deep voice settling over the room. "I don't wish to disrupt the morning preparations." The kitchen came back to life, but with stiff, self-conscious movements. Whispers stirred behind every ladle and chopping board. Astra ducked her head and resumed her task, hands trembling. Maybe if she stayed small, unseen, he wouldn't notice her. "Please don't see me," she thought. "Please don't remember." She felt him moving closer, his presence unmistakable. The head cook guided him proudly through the stations. "And here we prepare the morning fruits and vegetables, Your Excellency." He was directly behind her now. Astra's shoulders tensed. She didn't breathe. "Ah," Damon said, his voice brushing over her like velvet. "There you are." The certainty in his tone was a blow, as if he'd been searching for her. Still, she didn't lift her head, couldn't meet his eyes. Her wolf strained toward him, but Astra kept her focus on the cutting board. "You're the girl from last night," Damon continued. A statement, not a question. The room went still again. "Your Excellency," the cook said nervously, "has this girl caused some offense? I assure you, she will be disciplined appropriately." "No offense," Damon said gently. Astra felt him step closer. She gripped the knife tighter as if it could root her to the ground. Then his fingers brushed beneath her chin, lifting her face. She resisted the urge to flinch, forcing herself to meet the gaze that haunted her dreams. Up close, she saw every detail. The gold flecks in his amber eyes, the faint scar over his brow, the softness in his expression. No cold mask, no commanding detachment, just him. Curious, intense, and something more. Something that called to the wild thing inside her. "You never told me your name," he said softly, the words meant for her alone, though they echoed in the silence. Her lips parted. The need to answer rose so fast she bit the inside of her cheek to stop it. She couldn't speak. Not yet. Not for 6 more months. "She can't tell you, Your Excellency," the cook interjected. "The girl is mute. Has been since she came to us 8 years ago." Damon didn't look away from her. "Is that so?" he murmured, thoughtful. "She's a simple girl," the cook added quickly, "but a hard worker. Never causes trouble." "And what do you call her?" Damon asked, his thumb grazing her jaw before lowering his hand. "Well, the staff calls her Star, Your Excellency." "Star?" His brow lifted. "She's always looking at the stars through the viewports," offered a younger kitchen girl, flushing when he glanced her way. "Star," Damon repeated, tasting the name. Astra's heart stumbled in her chest. He looked at her one last time before turning to the steward. "From today, Star will serve as my personal attendant." A collective gasp rippled through the room. "See that her things are moved to appropriate quarters near my chambers." The steward bowed. "As you wish, Your Excellency." Astra stood frozen, knife clenched in her hand as Damon turned back to her. "Until this afternoon," he said, his voice low and certain. "Star." And then he was gone, leaving silence, stares, and the unraveling of everything she had worked so hard to keep hidden. ## Chapter 4. The command chambers were grander than Astra had ever imagined, even after 8 years in the colony. As Damon's personal attendant, She now had access to spaces few servants ever entered. Most daunting of all, his private quarters. "Your Excellency, with all due respect, this is highly irregular," Lord Vex said, casting Astra a wary glance. "A personal attendant should be trained, experienced." "Star has served in this colony for 8 years, Damon replied without looking up from his data pad. "That seems experienced enough." "But she's mute," Vex pressed. "How will she announce visitors, relay messages?" "I find silence refreshing, old friend." Vex sighed in defeat, bowing stiffly before exiting and leaving Astra alone with the commander for the first time since that charged moment in his study. Damon kept reading, content to let her stand in silence. Astra lowered her gaze, heart pounding. His scent wrapped around her. Clean, masculine, tinged with ozone from the recycled air, stirring her wolf. At last, he set the data pad aside and turned to her. "Are you afraid of me, little star?" It wasn't a question born of ego, but genuine curiosity. Astra glanced up, then quickly lowered her eyes again, giving a small shake of her head. "Then what troubles you?" Damon rose, approaching with slow, deliberate steps. "You're trembling." Astra forced stillness into her limbs as he stopped before her. "Look at me," he said gently. Took all her courage, but she met his eyes. Amber light burned in his gaze, intense and searching. "There," he murmured, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. "I was beginning to think I'd imagined it." Astra tilted her head slightly, questioning. "That feeling," he said, "when our eyes meet, you feel it too, don't you?" After a moment, she gave the smallest of nods. "Good." A smile curved his lips. "At least I'm not going mad." He returned to his desk, leaving Astra breathless by the wall. The first week passed in a blur. Astra quickly learned the rhythm of his days and discovered an unexpected advantage in her new position. She could guard his food and drink from tampering. She inspected every dish brought to him, watching for bioengineered toxins, subtle discoloration, the faint shimmer of poison. But something else grew steadily more dangerous, the tension between them. It began with his eyes, how they followed her movements, how they darkened when she leaned close to pour his beverage. By the second week came casual touches, fingers grazing when she handed him data pads, a brush of his shoulder beside hers in the corridor. By the third week, Astra both dreaded and craved the evening ritual of helping him undress. Tradition required it, but every motion became exquisite torture. She would stand before him, hands trembling as she unfastened the clasps of his uniform jacket, avoiding his gaze, though she could feel its heat. The jacket would fall away, revealing the fine fabric beneath. Her eyes, traitorous, drifted to the strong line of his throat, the glimpse of collarbone. "The shirt too, Star," he would say, his voice dropping just enough to unravel her. Each movement was practiced now, the careful tug of fabric, the deliberate averted eyes, the controlled breaths. But one night, as she reached for his shirt, his hand caught her wrist. "Have dinner with me," he said softly. Against her better judgment, she met his gaze. Hunger burned in it. "Not as my servant," he added, "as my guest." That night they dined alone in his private chambers. LED candles softened the space. The usual distance between them melted into warmth and stolen glances. He insisted she sit across from him, watching with quiet pleasure as she tasted food she usually served. Though she said nothing, the silence between them buzzed with unspoken meaning. When she rose to clear the plates, he caught her hand. "Leave them," he said. "Sit with me by the viewport." She obeyed, heart pounding. The earthlight played across his face, his knee nearly brushing hers. The scent of him, rich, warm, familiar, made her wolf stir. He poured more wine, letting his fingers linger against hers. "When you're not with me," he murmured, "I find myself watching the door, waiting for your return." His voice dropped lower. "And when you're near, it's its own kind of torment, because all I can think about is having you closer still." His gaze fell to her lips where a drop of wine clung. She froze. His thumb brushed across her mouth, removing the wine, but leaving heat in its place. These nights became a ritual. Dinner, conversation, the space between them narrowing. Some evenings his hand found hers in the earthlight. Others he tucked a lock of hair behind her ear, fingertips lingering on her cheek. Astra tried to stay grounded. She reminded herself why she was here, to protect him, to finish her brother's suits, to remain hidden until the curse was broken. But each night chipped away at her resolve. And each time he looked at her like she was his entire world, she felt it crumble a little more. "You're avoiding me?" Damon said one evening after Astra had deliberately maintained her distance throughout dinner, moving away whenever he came too close. They were alone in his chambers, hollow fire crackling as night descended outside the viewports. She shook her head without looking up, busying herself with straightening objects that didn't need straightening. "Liar," he said, but his tone held no accusation, only heated awareness. "Every time I come near, you find a reason to move away." "Why?" Astra kept her back to him, arranging books on a shelf with trembling fingers. She heard him approach, his footsteps deliberately slow, giving her every opportunity to retreat. "Little star." The way he said the name, rough, almost desperate, made her breath catch. "Please look at me." She couldn't refuse him. Slowly, she turned, pressing her back against the bookshelf. "There's something between us," he said, his voice low and intimate in the quiet room. "From the moment I first saw you, something inside me changed. I dream of you when I close my eyes." His voice dropped to a whisper raw with emotion. "I sense you even when you're not near. It's as though a part of my soul has always been yours, though my mind still struggles to understand why." Astra's chest tightened. Her own wolf pressed against her consciousness, whining for its mate. "You feel it too?" he continued, bracing one arm against the bookshelf beside her head. "I see it in your eyes." His gaze dropped to her lips, lingered there with naked hunger. "Why do you fight it so?" "Because I can't be yours," she wanted to cry out. Because Morga would destroy you if she knew who I really am. Because my brothers' lives depend on my silence. But she could say none of this, could only stand trembling as he slowly raised his free hand to her face. Her eyes fluttered closed, a small involuntary sound, not quite a whimper, not quite a sigh, escaping her throat. "Don't," he whispered, his breath warm against her lips. "Don't close your eyes." Slowly, giving her every chance to retreat, he lowered his mouth to hers. And then, 8 years of longing collapsed into a single heartbeat as his lips found hers. Gentle at first, a whisper, then everything at once. Fire raced through Astra's veins, consuming reason as his body pressed against her. Too close, and yet somehow she needed him closer still. The heat of his mouth, the taste of him, wine and desire and barely restrained power. It was drowning and breathing all at once. When they finally broke apart, Damon rested his forehead against hers, his breathing as ragged as her own. "Star," he breathed. Astra trembled in his embrace, joy and despair warring within her. This was everything she had dreamed of for 8 long years, and everything she couldn't truly have until her vow was complete. As he drew her in for another kiss, his fingers tangling in her hair, Astra knew she was lost. 6 more months suddenly seemed an eternity, and the secret she kept between them, an abyss too wide to cross. Chapter 5. LED candlelight flickered across Damon's face as he traced slow circles on Astra's palm. In moments like this, she could simply be a woman loved by a man, not a cursed princess with a colony to save. By day, they kept their distance. She was only his silent attendant. No lingering looks, no accidental touches. Even Morga, now a frequent guest at the colony, paid her little attention, just another servant. But the witch's charming words and calculating smiles were reserved for Damon, circling him like a predator stalking prey. "What's troubling you?" Damon asked, sensing the tension in her shoulders. "Your thoughts seem far away tonight." She shook her head and nestled closer. Even if she could speak, how could she explain that the woman now courting him had once destroyed her family? "Star," He turned her gently. You're exhausted. You've been pushing yourself too hard. Astra averted her gaze. The final suit was nearly finished. Her brother's freedom was within reach. Later, once Damon had drifted to sleep, she slipped from his embrace and moved silently through the maintenance passage leading to the servants' wing. Instead of returning to her quarters, she made her way to the kitchens and out through the service airlock. The Martian surface greeted her like an old friend. Red dust, thin atmosphere. The dome of stars overhead unfiltered by Earth's thick air. She activated her personal shield generator, the protective field shimmering around her as she made her way to the familiar canyon. At the sheltered cave, she waited. Then came the sound she hoped for, a low, melodic howl carried on the thin wind. They emerged from the shadows like spirits made flesh. 6 wolves larger than any natural beast, their forms adapted to Mars' lower gravity. At their head, a silver-streaked wolf moved with quiet authority, Orion. Astra dropped to her knees, arms wide. Her eldest brother pressed his head to her shoulder with a soft whine. The others surrounded her, nuzzling her with joy. Zephyr, the smallest, danced circles around her before proudly showing her the fresh Ares thorn they'd found. Tears stung her eyes as she buried her hands in their fur. Settling at the cave entrance, she pulled out her sewing kit and worked by the light of Phobos and Deimos, her brothers forming a protective ring around her. Only when the first light of dawn touched the horizon did she stop, the last sleeve nearly finished. With reluctance, she packed up. She had to return to Damon's quarters before he woke to keep him from asking questions she couldn't answer. But when she reached the command wing, her heart sank. Guards stood posted outside his chambers. Star! She turned at the familiar voice. Kira, one of the kitchen girls, rushed toward her. The commander's been looking everywhere, she whispered. He came to the kitchens himself at dawn asking for you. Astra's stomach twisted. The guards let her pass. Inside, she found Damon by the viewport, his hair tousled. He turned at her entrance, relief flooding his face. Where have you been? He asked softly, crossing to her. I woke and you were gone. She lowered her eyes. Star. Her name was a plea. I imagined the worst. That you'd been taken, hurt, that you'd left. She shook her head, finally meeting his eyes. Never. Then where? He asked. Where do you go when you disappear? What secret calls you away from me? Exhaustion and guilt crashed over her. The room blurred. She swayed. Then darkness took her. She awoke to cool linens and quiet voices. Simply exhaustion, Your Excellency. Nothing that rest won't cure, the medical officer said. You're certain? Damon asked, tension in his voice. Quite certain, though I would recommend several days of complete rest. The bed dipped as Damon sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance. Rest now, he whispered, brushing her hair. I'll be here when you wake. Astra slipped back into sleep. She didn't know how long she slept, but when she stirred again, warm light filled the room. Damon's voice drifted from nearby, low and thoughtful. I never understood the old tales of mate bonds, he said. My father called them romantic nonsense. A soft laugh. He'd be appalled to see his son so thoroughly ensnared. She stayed still, afraid to break the spell of his words. From the moment I truly saw you, he murmured, something changed in me, like a missing piece finally returned. Her heart pounded. I think you're my mate, Star, he whispered. My wolf has never responded to anyone like it does to you. His thumb brushed her wrist. I want you to be mine, not just in stolen moments, but before the world. Tears welled behind her closed eyes. Everything she longed for, offered freely, but she couldn't accept. Not yet. Not with her brothers still cursed. Not with Morga waiting to strike. I know you carry secrets, he said gently. Whatever they are, we can face them together. His voice grew more certain. When you're well again, I intend to ask you properly, to offer you my heart, my position, my life. A soft kiss pressed to her hand. Until then, rest and heal, my Star. A week passed. Astra returned to her duties, though Damon watched her more closely now. She worked on the suit in quiet, stolen moments. Then came the evening she had been dreading. Damon dismissed his advisors early and asked for a private dinner. When the meal was cleared, he offered his hand. "Walk with me." He led her into the biodomes, to the section where Ares thorn grew silver in the artificial moonlight. "Do you remember the first time I truly saw you?" he asked beside a hydroponic bench. "Before you, I was only a commander. But now," he breathed deeply, "now I cannot imagine life without you." Her heart raced. She knew what was coming. "Though we've never spoken of it directly, surely you feel what lies between us," he said, voice thick with emotion. He dropped to one knee. "My wolf has chosen you," he whispered. "My heart has chosen you. I wish for you to become my partner, my mate, my everything." Tears clouded Astra's vision as she gazed down at him, her heart breaking in two. She wanted to say yes. Gods above, how she yearned to throw herself into his arms, to embrace the future he offered. But Morga's calculating eyes flashed in her memory, followed by images of her brothers trapped in wolf form, waiting for her to fulfill her vow. If she accepted him now, became his partner, Morga would surely recognize her, would know her curse had not been complete, and Damon would be caught in the crossfire, perhaps falling victim to the same fate as her father. With her heart shattering into countless pieces, Astra gently withdrew her hands from his. Confusion crossed his features. "You cannot truly mean this," he said, rising to his feet. "Star, I know what lies between us. I have felt it every time we touch." She stepped back again, shaking her head. "Why?" he asked, voice raw. "I know you care for me. I know you feel this bond." She pointed away from herself, toward the colony, toward duty, sacrifice. "You believe yourself unworthy?" he guessed. "I care nothing for your lineage, Star. Status means little to me." If only he knew. She shook her head again, more desperately. "Please," he whispered, reaching for her. "Whatever burden you carry, we can face it together. Just don't turn away from this. From us." But she stepped out of reach. The hurt in his eyes transformed to something worse. Resignation. "I see," he said quietly. "I was mistaken then." No, she wanted to cry out. Asterisk, you weren't mistaken. I love you more than I can bear. Asterisk. Forgive me for misunderstanding, he continued. I won't trouble you with this again. He turned away, his shoulders rigid with dignity despite the rejection. Astra watched him walk away, her hand rising involuntarily as if to call him back. 6 more months of silence. 6 more months before she could explain, before she could beg his forgiveness and pray his heart hadn't hardened against her completely. But first, she had a suit to finish and brothers to save. Rising on trembling legs, Astra wiped away her tears and turned toward the airlock where 6 wolves waited for her return. Duty before love. It had always been so for royalty. ## Chapter 6. A fortnight had passed since Astra's heart-shattering rejection of Damon's proposal. 14 days of aching silence, of returning to the kitchens, no longer welcome in his chambers, no longer greeted by secret smiles. The colony whispered. Some said she had refused the commander and been dismissed. Others claimed she'd been caught stealing or spying. None guessed the truth, that she had sacrificed her own happiness to protect the man she loved and the brothers who depended on her. The hardest part wasn't returning to the kitchens. It was the moments when her path crossed Damon's. Each glance, each silence carved deeper into her already broken heart. His eyes had changed. Once warm amber, they were now dull with resignation. His face had grown hollow, shadowed with sleepless nights. His skin, once healthy, had lost its glow. And Morga circled him like a hawk. Each of her smiles was a dagger in Astra's chest. Yet the separation gave her time. Each night, by LED light, her fingers flew over the Ares thorn fibers. The 6th suit was nearly done. Just a sleeve left now. 2 more nights, maybe. But then came the banquet. The autumn feast drew nobles from across the colonies. 1,000 lights lit the grand hall. Astra, by cruel twist of fate, was assigned to serve the high table, directly in Damon's line of sight. She had nearly made it through the interminable evening when he rose to his feet, glass in hand. The hall fell silent, all eyes turning to the commander. Astra froze near the wall, a serving tray clutched to her chest like a shield. "Esteemed guests," Damon said, his voice carrying through the hall. "I wish to share joyous news on this celebration night." Something in his tone made Astra look up. What she saw sent ice through her veins. Damon's posture was rigid, unnatural. His eyes, those eyes she knew better than her own, held an unfamiliar glassy sheen, with the faintest hint of unnatural silver light at their centers. "Governor Morga of Argentum has done me the great honor of accepting my proposal of marriage." A gasp rippled through the hall. Morga rose, triumphant, placing a possessive hand on his arm. "Our union will bring prosperity to both our colonies," Damon continued, voice flat. "The wedding will take place at the next full Earthrise." The tray slipped from Astra's hands, clattering to the floor. She knew this look, this hollowness. Her father had worn the same expression before the end. Heads turned, Damon's included. For a moment, recognition, pain. But Morga's grip tightened and the light in his eyes dulled again. Astra backed away, heading for the servants' exit. "Guards, seize that girl." Morga's voice cut through the hall. Astra froze. Guards blocked her path. The witch pointed, crimson nails gleaming. "This servant is a witch who has been attempting to enchant His Excellency." Gasps, murmurs, accusations found eager ears. Hadn't Damon shown strange interest in her? Now the whispers turned to nods. "Only when I arrived did I recognize the signs of enchantment," Morga said, standing beside the vacant-eyed commander. "I have broken her spell, and the commander has returned to his senses. Is this not so, my love?" Damon didn't flinch. "Yes," he said flatly. "I was bewitched." Lord Vex stepped forward, troubled. "Your Excellency, this seems a hasty judgment. The girl cannot even speak. How could she cast spells?" Astra shook her head desperately, eyes pleading. "The commander himself confirms it," Morga insisted. "Is that not enough?" Damon's gaze remained distant. "Yes, she is a witch." The guards seized her, dragging her through familiar halls, down into the detention level's cold metal belly. A cell door slammed shut. Astra sank to the floor, shaking with rage and fear. Morga had Damon under the same enchantment she once used on her father. And just like then, the witch would drain him to feed her abilities. And Astra, bound by her vow, could not cry out. Hours later, footsteps echoed. The door creaked open and Morga entered. Smiling, she dismissed the guards and stepped inside. "At last," she said, circling like a predator. "The lost princess at my mercy once more." Astra kept her face blank, though her heart raced. "Did you truly believe I wouldn't recognize you? Those silver eyes are unmistakable." She traced Astra's cheek with a crimson nail. "I've known since the commander announced me as his guest. You thought you could hide among the servants." She chuckled. "But I never forget a face, especially one I've hunted for years." Astra's hands clenched. Her wolf stirred. "I should have cursed you along with your brothers," Morga mused. "A mistake I won't repeat." She turned to the small viewport, earthlight casting cruel beauty over her face. "Your father made that same face. He died calling your name, begging me to spare his children." Astra stepped forward, fury rising. "Oh, does that anger you?" Morga laughed. "Your mate will suffer the same fate. Already his life force strengthens me. By our wedding night, he'll be little more than a shell." Astra lunged, but froze mid-motion, paralyzed. "You always were impulsive," Morga chided. "No discipline, no patience." She released the spell. Astra stumbled, catching herself. "The execution is set for dawn," Morga said, heading for the door. A swift decompression. Nothing dramatic. The commander insisted. Some final scrap of affection, I suppose. She turned at the threshold, eyes gleaming. "Oh, and your brothers will be there to witness your death. I've arranged a special hunt. 6 Martian wolves captured alive, brought to the execution grounds. Poetic, isn't it? A family reunion at the end. The door slammed shut. Alone, Astra collapsed to the floor, mind racing. Dawn. She had until dawn to save them all. Her fingers slipped into the hidden pocket of her dress. She drew out the nearly finished sixth suit, Ares' thorn threads glowing faintly in the dark. Only a few rows of weaving remained. She glanced to the viewport. The full Earth would rise in 3 days, Morga's chosen wedding night. With trembling hands, Astra began to weave. Chapter 7. Dawn bathed Ferrum Hold Colony in hues of amber and crimson filtered through the protective dome. As Astra stood on the execution platform, her hands bound, the recycled breeze tugging at her simple dress. In her grasp, hidden inside a cloth sack, were the 6 completed Ares thorn suits. Her final request, granted by a careless guard who saw no harm in letting a condemned witch clutch her good luck charms. A crowd had gathered, nobles in fine synthetic fabrics, servants in drab uniforms, hungry to witness the execution of the woman accused of enchanting their commander. Astra saw none of them. Her eyes searched for the only ones who mattered. There, at the edge of the square, 6 oversized wolves strained within plasma-barred cages, eyes locked on her with anguished recognition. Orion hurled himself against the bars, his silver-streaked fur streaked with blood from repeated attempts to break free. Morga had kept her promise. Her brothers were here to watch her die. Across from her, the witch sat poised and gleaming in midnight blue, a silver circlet on her brow. Beside her, Damon slumped in his throne-like chair, eyes dull with silver light, his skin pale, his movements sluggish, every breath a little more stolen by Morga's spell. Lord Vex hovered near, his concern evident, though Morga intercepted every attempt he made to reach Damon. A herald stepped forward, voice booming through the speakers. Star, servant of Ferrum Hold Colony, has been found guilty of biomanipulation and the enchantment of His Excellency, Commander Damon Steele. The sentence is death by decompression, to be carried out immediately. The executioner approached with a plasma blade slung over his shoulder. "Have you any final words?" The herald sneered. "Oh, I forget. You cannot speak." Morga laughed, sharp as glass. "How fortunate. Witches are known to curse with their dying breath." Astra heard none of it. Her focus stayed on her brothers and on Damon. She had completed the 6th suit just before dawn, the final stitch sewn as the first light breached the horizon. All 6 suits now rested in the sack, ready for their purpose. The executioner positioned the decompression chamber before her. The guards moved forward to force her inside. Just as they reached for her, a tremendous crash erupted from the edge of the square. The plasma bars of the wolves' cages flickered and failed, sabotaged. The assembled crowd gasped, many scrambling backward as 6 enormous wolves surged free, bounding toward the execution platform with supernatural speed. "Stop them!" Morga shrieked, rising from her throne. "Guards, security!" Astra broke her bonds with sudden strength. Adrenaline, desperation, or something more. She upended the sack, 6 Ares thorn suits unfurling into the air like falling stars. "Orion! Zephyr!" she cried, her voice clear and strange after 9 years of silence. "Brothers to me!" The wolves leapt, each suit landing perfectly upon a wolf's back. As they landed around her in a protective ring, silver light erupted from the fabric, brilliant, pulsing waves that blinded the crowd. Fur receded, limbs lengthened. When the light finally faded, Astra stood surrounded not by wolves, but by 6 men in resplendent royal attire. The Ares thorn suits had transformed along with their wearers, becoming elegant uniforms of silver and midnight blue, embroidered with the wolf emblem of House Argentum. Astra's own simple dress had transformed as well, becoming a gown of shimmering silver that caught the light with every movement, like a star brought down to Mars. "What sorcery is this?" someone gasped from the crowd. Orion stepped forward, his voice strong. "Not sorcery, Justice." He took Astra's hand. "People of Ferrum Hold," he declared. "We are the royal family of Argentum, cursed by the witch Morga 9 years ago. I am Crown Prince Orion. These are my brothers. And this, He looked to Astra. "Is our sister, Princess Astra of Argentum?" Murmurs of amazement swept through the crowd. Nobles who had visited Argentum in years past studied their faces, recognition dawning in their expressions. On her throne, Morga snarled. "Lies." The Argentum line was extinguished. Confusion rippled through the assembly. Guards looking to each other uncertainly. Nobles whispering furiously behind raised hands. "Seize the impostors!" Morga shrieked. "They aim to overthrow your commander." Some guards moved, others faltered. Vex looked to Damon, unsure. "Your Excellency," he said, "what are your orders?" But Damon didn't answer. He sat slumped, the silver in his eyes brightening, his skin nearly translucent. He was slipping away. "He cannot hear you," Astra said, her voice growing stronger. "Look at him. She's killing him just as she killed our father." Fighting broke out between loyalists and Morga's hired guards. Chaos erupted. "Astra, we must reach the commander," Orion said. With her brothers guarding her, Astra pushed toward the dais. She broke free at the last moment, sprinting up the steps just as Damon collapsed. "Damon!" she cried, catching him. His skin was ice, his breaths ragged. "It's too late," Morga sneered, retreating. "His life has been mine for weeks." "Zephyr," Astra called. "Don't let her escape." With a flash of steel, Zephyr vaulted past the chaos, landing before Morga with his blade to her throat. "Not another word, witch," he growled. On the dais, Astra cradled Damon's head in her lap, panic rising as his breathing grew more labored. "Damon," she called, stroking his face. "Damon, come back to me." His eyelids fluttered, the silver glow within pulsing weakly, but he showed no sign of recognition. The enchantment still held him, even as it drained his final reserves. "How do I break it?" Astra demanded, looking to her grandmother's spirit that appeared beside her. Faint, ethereal. "You know the answer, child," the spirit said softly. "With the ancient magic of your kind. To claim is to free." Astra's breath caught. The bond, of course. The mate bond between them had formed, but remained incomplete. A half-connection that had left Damon vulnerable to Morga's manipulation. To break the enchantment, she would need to claim him properly in the way of wolves. Without hesitation, Astra lowered her face to Damon's neck, finding the pulse point where his scent was strongest. "Forgive me," she whispered against his skin, then bit down firmly, her teeth breaking the surface just enough to mark him as hers. Power surged between them instantly, raw, primal magic that had nothing to do with spells or potions. The mate bond roared to life, a golden thread connecting their souls that no enchantment could sever. The silver light was forced from Damon's eyes, dissipating into the air with a high, thin wail of defeated magic. Beneath her, Damon shuddered, his body arching. Then the silver light burst from his eyes in a blinding flash, dissipating into the morning air. For a moment, he lay still in her arms. Then his eyes flew open, clear amber, free of enchantment, fixing directly on her face with bewilderment. "Star," he murmured, his hand rising weakly to touch her face. "I'm so sorry," she said, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I love you. I have always loved you." Despite his weakness, Damon smiled, that same smile that had first captured her heart. "You're here," he said simply, as if that were the only thing that mattered. Then, with a surge of unexpected strength, he pulled her down to him, and with a growl that was more wolf than man, he turned his face to her neck, returning the claiming bite with one of his own. The mate bond between them flared complete, unbreakable, eternal. Then Damon's gaze darted around, taking in the chaos of the square, the transformed princes, and Astra's royal attire. Confusion clouded his features. "Star, what's happening?" Orion stepped forward, his royal bearing unmistakable despite his years as a wolf. "You will address my sister with the title she is due," he said firmly. "She is Princess Astra of Argentum, daughter of Commander Caius." Damon's eyes widened as he looked back at Astra. "You're the princess? The lost princess of Argentum?" Astra squeezed his hand. "Later," she said, pointing to the continued fighting in the square. "First, we need to stop this." Damon struggled to his feet with Astra's assistance. The fighting in the square continued, guards battling guards in the confusion of divided loyalties. "Enough!" Damon roared, his alpha voice rippling with power that froze every combatant mid-swing. "Lower your weapons now." The square fell silent, all eyes turning to the dais where the Alpha commander stood with unmistakable authority despite his recent weakness. "Guards," Damon continued, his voice leaving no room for disobedience. "Arrest the witch Morga for treason, attempted commandercide, and biomanipulation of your leader." This time, the guards moved without hesitation, surrounding Morga and clasping biosuppressor cuffs around her wrists to neutralize her abilities. "This isn't over," the witch hissed as they dragged her away. "I have powers beyond your imagining. And I have family," Astra replied simply. "Something you could never understand." As the witch was led away, Damon turned to Astra, his eyes filled with questions. "There is much I don't understand," he said quietly. "But one thing I know beyond doubt." His hand rose to touch the claiming mark on his neck, then the matching one on hers. "We are bound now, as we were always meant to be." Astra smiled up at him, her first true smile in 9 years. "Yes," she said, savoring the simple joy of speaking to her mate at last. "And I have so much to tell you." #epilogue. 1 month after Morga's defeat, the grandest celebration in living memory united the colonies of Ferrum Hold and Argentum. Astra stood before the ancient earth tree in the colony's central biodome. Not a silent servant girl, but a princess in her full glory. Her gown shimmered like starlight, woven from silk as silver as her eyes, a delicate crown of silver and moonstone resting on her brow. At her side stood Damon, resplendent in midnight blue and silver, his strength fully restored, his amber gaze fixed on her alone. The claiming marks on their necks remained visible above their formal attire, a proud declaration of a bond that transcended colonial custom. Before them stood Crown Commander Orion of Argentum, silver-streaked hair crowned with their father's restored circlet. Since reclaiming the colony, he had proven himself every bit their father's heir, his years as a wolf granting him quiet wisdom. Today, Orion's voice rang out across the gathered nobility. "We witness not merely the union of two people, but the healing of a wound that has festered between our colonies for too long." Astra's 5 brothers stood beside their commander, each restored to his rightful place. Zephyr, the youngest, gave her a cheeky wink. "My sister," Orion continued, "preserved her silence for 10 years to save us. Now I ask you to speak freely before these witnesses, the vows that will bind you to your mate and your colonies to each other." Astra's voice, once forbidden, rang clear as silver bells. "I, Astra of House Argentum, take you, Damon of House Steel, as my mate and my commander. What was claimed in private, I now declare in public. Our lives are bound. Our souls are one. Our colonies united through our bond." Damon's reply was rich with alpha strength, yet tender with love. "I, Damon of House Steel, take you, Astra of House Argentum, as my mate, my co-leader, and my heart. What began in silence shall flourish in harmony. 2 colonies but 1 alliance, 2 leaders but 1 rule, 2 wolves but 1 pack." Orion placed his hands over theirs. "Then by the power of both our houses, I declare you husband and wife, commander and princess, mates bound by laws both human and wolf." As their lips met, sealing their vows, magic shimmered in the air. No longer the dark manipulations of Morga, but the ancient, primal magic of true mates. Magic of broken things made whole again. That evening at the grand feast, Astra danced with each of her brothers in turn, their joy reclaiming 9 years of stillness. When she returned to Damon, his hand found hers beneath the table, thumb tracing the calluses left by years of weaving Ares thorn. "No regrets?" he asked softly, his eyes searching hers. "You spent so long in silence, away from them, away from what was rightfully yours." Astra shook her head, a smile blooming on lips no longer bound. How could I regret the path that led me to you? The silence was my sacrifice, but finding you was my reward. From opposite ends of the high table, the royal houses of Argentum and Faramhold raised their glasses in unison. Wolves once divided, now one pack. And in the colony biodomes, silver Ares thorn bloomed beside ironstem flowers, their roots entwining beneath the Martian soil, as the futures of two colonies now grew together. Separate yet one, distinct yet bound by a love that endured 9 years of silence to speak at last. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the story. You may have noticed I used a different voice for the narration this time. I'd love to hear what you think. Let me know in the comments if it worked for you or if you preferred the previous one. I don't narrate the stories myself because I have a bit of a French accent and I want the experience to feel as smooth and immersive as possible. See you in the next story. With love, Lily.